Hello.
Oh, sorry. I'm over here listening to the music.
It's another Monday, So.
Hello. Happy Monday. Good morning and welcome to the latest episode of the Project Failure Files, the series for anyone who manages people, projects, or processes for a living. I am Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am Christian Buckley, founder of Collab Talk, and welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I just sit around every Monday morning, as we do, and explore management and leadership topics from the perspective of what not to do.
Yep. In fact, in this episode, we're talking about something that we do kind of sit around regularly and chat about needing to do more of, which is more recognition. More recognition. Let's see if I can say that 3 times fast. Recognition, celebrating wins, and building a culture of appreciation.
And better enunciation.
No,
I mean, we were actually just talking about this in last week's episode, and I think we've got a couple other topics and we've talked about in the past, and we'll talk about it in the future. I think there's some other side topics around this, and I think we both agree. I mean, this is just an area where we can constantly improve because we focus so much on what goes wrong on a project. In my experience, there's just not enough time that's spent on what went right. And it's not like, you need to constantly look what we did. That's not what we're talking about. Even in ongoing operational roles where, the fact that the machine is up and running, things didn't break because yes, people are doing their jobs, but you look at what about rewarding recognition for uptime, for consistently keeping those things in check, for having minimal downtime around issues. I worked in an organization years back where they did recognize exactly that and celebrated when a milestone had been reached, when we surpassed previous goals. So doing your job competently day in and day out, that's not what we're talking about. That kind of recognizing praise and and formal recognition for doing your job. That's not what we're talking about necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think we need participation trophies. I do believe that's called a paycheck.
Right. No, of course not. It's more about the cultural change that is so needed in most organizations to figure out how do we better recognize people for their good work. I remember, this is one of those things of so many bad manager examples that I could bring up, but a manager for a company I worked for in the early 90s for just under a year actually told a group of employees, paraphrasing but pretty close here, the fact that you still have a job in this economic climate, blah, 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 be thankful kind of things. And a couple observations. He was right. It was kind of a tighter time, and there's a better way to phrase that. So that was an indicator to me, culturally, this is not a place where it's going to be a long-term fit.
Yeah, I think that you can be creative in how you celebrate wins, but I also think you need to balance celebration with progress. Yeah. So, long story short, I think that what we're trying to do is motivate people to accomplish their goals and get things done. Well, have goals in the first place would be really
having goals.
I suppose that's a good place to start if you want to make recognition part of your culture, is to have something to be able to achieve and then be able to achieve it.
Yeah, I think we probably should expand on our topics around goal setting as well. Maybe it'll come out of this episode. As always, I'm sure it'll be a great conversation, really interesting. As with every episode here, if you're joining us for the first time or you're a long time watcher of this series, we're here every Monday morning. Please feel free to comment throughout the episode. Leave us your thoughts, your feedback. Let us know if there are some examples around this topic. You have ideas for other topics. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So let's get started with some definitions.
All right. So when you think of this, forgetting the victory lap, I think of it refers to you're skipping obvious moments of recognition, of reflection, after completing major or even minor milestones. We always talk about like the post-mortem. One of the most important parts of any project is the post-mortem, so that you can review and learn from what went right, what went wrong, what do we need to change. Like it's frustrating where, at the front of projects, what gets cut. Usually it's like training, gets cut, all the marketing gets cut from all that kind of stuff. And then the review, the analysis, the postmortems get cut at the end. We don't have time. We move on to the next thing. So you never learn.
Well, but Christian, sometimes there's a pizza party.
True.
Sometimes there's a pizza party. But truthfully, it is so normal for so many people are juggling things. Like I remember back in the day, early on, I don't know, when you're young, I guess, I don't know, when you're like focused on one thing at a time. Do you remember a time like way back when like it was like
one thing at a time?
One thing at a time. And we would do
understand that.
One project and we would finish one. Maybe I worked at some good places, but we'd like focus on one project. We'd do one project. We'd finish one project. We'd celebrate a project. Then we'd start on another project, right? And that was what you did. And then kind of as I got older and got more experienced and, went into different places, it seems like, well, now I've got 2 projects and 3 projects and 5 projects and 10 projects. And now there's just so many things going on that I don't really know when one begins and another ends. And so what ends up happening is we just get so busy delivering and we get so busy being productive and efficient that we're just moving from one deliverable to the next. Like, I don't think we ever really take time to stop and slow down and say, look what we did. Like, look what we accomplished.
Right. Well, that's it. It's not just a fluff thing. Like, hey, Sharon, let's take the team out to Chuck E. Cheese. Like, no, that's that. Although I just went to a renovated Chuck E. Cheese. It's definitely not made for adults. It's for little kids, as it always has been. No, it was clean, and you didn't feel like you needed to wash your hands or take a bath right after having visited.
We went to Top Golf last summer. That was fun.
But anyway, you can come up with other more creative ideas for entertainment. No, it's not just about a celebration. It's not just this fluff.
Right.
It's a reinforcement. It helps build morals. It helps build loyalty for the team. It's psychological safety. Hey, I realize that I can work hard here, and people see it. They see me. They're recognized for that. So, I mean, that's just an important part of it. And having said that, again, we talked about this last week. If you're actually talking to your people, get to know them, you'll find far more are motivated by the recognition than are not. And there are some people that are like, hey, it's not a big deal for me. It's like I'm paid well. I enjoy the work that I'm doing, and that's a reward here. That's all they need. And so saying like, hey, good job, high five or handshake, or just seeing their name on a leaderboard might be okay, where others, it's a major motivational factor.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody just wants to hear something nice said about them, and they want to feel like they're, valuable and that they're doing something that matters to the people around them. So I think it is important. And I don't think people really don't do it enough, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and I think as you mentioned too, sometimes it's about like the goals, like identifying what are the milestones we're going to celebrate when we pass those. If you're able to in the life cycle of projects to identify those markers and then make sure that you deliver on that, that commitment. It's great. You can't always do that. You're not able to identify those things, but even if you are,
especially if you don't have them.
Well, I mean, so let's go back to, something like you talk about back in your software engineering days, and it reminds me too of my time like back at Microsoft, going to the release parties internally. Mm-hmm. And so they would sometimes they were huge. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was a server and tools group that was that they brought in an outside band.
That was before we used to do releases every day, Christian.
Right. I know. This was the major release. So it was a 3 to 5 year cycle. And so it was a big deal around those releases. But just that culture of and our organization of less than 100 people, we would do that where on like every other Friday, milestones hit or something that we would celebrate around, and they would bring out like the drinks cart and have other food, and it was something that our director or GM level, so it was a little bit lower down the organization, would go and do that to recognize here's where we are. It's an ongoing multi-year effort building evergreen software, the SaaS software. It's an ongoing thing. So to recognize X number of features, the build size, number of tickets closed, whatever it is, all of those things, there's always going to be something to go and celebrate.
Yeah, there's always something. And I think, when you think about how you celebrate, I think you have to think about what makes sense for that particular group and that particular thing and that particular, I don't know, what is it you're trying to accomplish with that, and be creative around it. I actually worked in a place one time. We had a manager who came in and we were celebrating something, I don't know, and they brought ice cream in. And it was funny because somebody made a comment of, oh my gosh, why would you even do this? And she was like, I mean, why wouldn't you have an ice cream party to celebrate,
Most people love that. Are you
And
kidding?
I thought that was really creative, I think, because I'm not, guys, I'm not anti-pizza party, right? I know there's a lot of memes about it. I'm not anti-pizza party, but at least she tried to do something different, which was really nice.
Right. No, I still have the appreciation Zune that I was handed out. Version 1 of my Zune. No, but I mean, I remember that when we were walking through. I'm not a big ice cream sandwich person, but walking through and handing those out, just wanted to thank everybody for working hard. And, and this was just a manager, nobody gave them funds to go and do that. They just went out and bought a dozen boxes of them and walked around handing those out. Just wanted to show some appreciation.
Let's be honest, Christian. When anybody shows appreciation, it's a very low chance that they had a budget for that.
Right. Yeah. But so thinking of this, from a cultural impact, the individual impact, your team, your working team, your project team impact, and then there's organizational impacts to those things. And a lot of large organizations, let's go kind of top, big down to small. A lot of huge organizations attempt to do some level of, you think of your local grocery store that has the employee of the week, employee of the month out there. And you think who cares about this? Well, if you work in that space, it's actually a big deal. And it actually helps build out for people that are starting their career or they're in there. I don't want to insult that space. I was going to make a joke like a grocery science degree around that, but a management degree that's in there. There's plenty that pay pretty darn well these days. But anyway, it looks good on a resume to have. Hey, I worked there 5 years. I was employee of the month 10 times over the 5 years, and here's what I did, and so that can help somebody progress. So for an organization to recognize that, to see the value in that, from a team, that stuff, it's nice. At a team and individual level, I think it just has much deeper meaning and can really help with the personal relationships. That's the stuff that actually motivates people. That do they wake up in the morning with dread for having to go into the office another day, or they know they've got a full inbox, they've got a lot to go and work on, but they're excited, they're enthusiastic, they feel supported, and they feel recognized.
Yeah,
I've worked in both of those types of orgs.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think when you take time to celebrate people, projects, accomplishments, goals, whatever it is that you're trying to recognize, I think you're absolutely right. I think individuals appreciate being noticed, but I do think at the team and the organizational level, I do think that it makes for stronger relationships. I think, when we talk about employee experience, right? Employee experience is a hot topic right now because we think about wanting how expensive it is to retain an employee. And so when we think about things like working people until they don't have a job anymore and not, celebrating anything along the way, people kind of feel like am I even really a good fit in this organization? Or am I just simply a factory worker or machine bot that, nobody even cares whether I'm here or not. I'm completely replaceable by just a different person. And I don't have any personal value. My team has no value. My organization has no value. I'm just here, to turn the gears. And I think going beyond that can raise employee satisfaction. It can raise team satisfaction. It can also take your organizational to a new level from, a business differentiator standpoint. And what I see is that businesses that care about employee experience and care about celebrating things like that tend to be more successful businesses.
Yep. No, there's something I take seriously too, is looking at, we've had these conversations when looking at clients. We want to work with clients that are best place to work in this region, 3 out of the last 5 years. Like I'm motivated to try and close them as a client, because those are the times I just usually have better experiences with them as a vendor. They have those kinds of cultures.
Yeah.
It's tough that if you don't have that, if you treat people like hey, you're a resource, you're in here, you're paid to do your job. It's that transactional approach.
What not to do, Christian, what not to do.
Don't treat people as their transactional relationships, because people, as you point out, they stop going above and beyond. They stop trying to do more, and they become unsatisfied with the role, and they are quick to look around, and you're going to lose them to the next best thing or the same thing in a slightly better organization.
Yeah.
They're going to take their chances.
Well, and also if we don't celebrate the wins, I think, what not to do is if you don't celebrate those wins, I'm not saying they're not going to show up and do their job because they want their paycheck, but maybe they're not going to try as hard next time. And maybe they're not going to care if it's successful or not. There's a difference between I did my job and I did my job well, right? There's a difference between I showed up and did the thing versus I accomplished the goal, right? Those are not even necessarily, the same thing. And so I think when we don't pay attention to what we're trying to accomplish, then all of a sudden, sometimes we do return to that transactional model of I showed up, I sat here for 8 hours, and I went home.
Yeah. We kind of just started down this path to talk about, the pitfalls of following this approach if this is unaddressed. The decline of motivation, in productivity, turnover, burnout at the individual level. Especially if you have people that are higher performers, they're going to feel burnout more quickly because they're not going to feel as supported around them. And so this is, it's tough. And I've been this place where I've been a manager where we even discussed it in our team meetings about how we felt invisible inside the larger organization, that people weren't paying attention to, because we had that unfortunate role in this team of owning a bunch of the operational systems that people forgot that were there. Like if we disappeared, then half the systems, the supporting systems, would stop working. Like all our SharePoint environments, like we did all of that on the back end.
What do you do anyways, Christian? Jeez.
Yeah, there's that. No, but it's. And you're also going to then, and it's most likely unintentional, you're going to start fostering, resentment or competition amongst other teams that seem to be getting the attention. Mm-hmm. Certainly taking over a couple different teams where this was an issue, trying to stamp that out by recognizing them and pointing out that this is not the team you just left. This is not the org that you moved over from. we do things differently here can go a long way, but it does take some time to heal some of those wounds.
I'm definitely going to be resentful if you're getting ice cream parties and I'm not.
Well, so something that you need to know about working from home is that the Buckley household always has ice cream. You don't have to ask, Sharon. If you and Jonathan come hang out here in Dallas, there will be ice cream offered every time. Yes. So
same here.
I'm not kidding. Like there's always Haagen-Dazs.
So what we're saying is on the Project Failure Files that ice cream is the absolute way to celebrate your victory lap. That's what we're saying here.
I'm not going to say that's the only way. It's a way.
The best way.
It's appreciated. I don't know best way. There's cash is a motivator as well.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Other stuff, but no, I mean, hey.
Goes back to being creative around being creative around
and having those conversations. What motivates you, Sharon, versus what motivates me? So
that is a good point.
Just to be clear with everybody, it is ice cream for both cases. But
at the end of the day, really, the idea is that we do not want to create a culture. We don't want to create a culture that's not sustainable because we're just having people basically work with no breaks and no celebrations and no resets and no nothing. And this just happens. It happens so often. And it's you can see organizations where people just eventually get burnt out. And what's really sad is I see people, and Christian, I'm going to say this, like I have friends who have gotten into places like this that are so bad that they had to quit their jobs and go do something else for a short period of time to be able to have any semblance of reprieve or break or anything in between what they're doing versus, having that ability to just kind of, and it's not even about taking a break. It's about celebrating the things that they had accomplished because they were just so busy doing that they never had time to really appreciate any of the things they were doing.
Well, honestly, I mean, I had going back 20 plus years, but working for a very well-funded venture capital funded startup, raised over $250 million, like not a small startup, and was paid reasonably well, but often felt shoved to the side and unappreciated because I was working on, there were 3 parts to the business and I was working on the least popular, thought to be the least interesting aspect of the company. 2 years later, though, sticking with it, we were the main thing. So stuff evolves and changes. When the other pie in the sky going in, that stuff didn't work out. It turned out that, hey, the thing that's actually driving business and revenue. Anyway, that's a different story. But I was going to say that's one of the reasons why I got involved with my first nonprofit and doing things outside. And actually talked with my wife about this, about how it's like, I'm not getting the job satisfaction, not getting the recognition, not getting, opportunities, really just treated like a transactional part of this org, and which is true. And they did 3 waves of cuts. I got cut the 3rd wave, and, because they got free resources, I led the PMO, so the project management organization. With all the consultants, the outside consultants, and then they got an outside consultant to basically take my job, who then kept reaching out to me for input and help. I'm like, dude, I'm not being paid to be here anymore. But yeah, I mean, it's when you have a gap, an emotional gap like that, you're going to go and you're going to fill it. Sometimes with ice cream.
A lot of times with ice cream. Yeah.
It's funny how it's the emotional gap fill and the reward.
It's the answer to everything.
All roads lead to ice cream, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thinking about strategies, how do we overcome How do overcome, Sharon?
Sorry.
All right, so what's the path out of this for an organization that recognizes we've not been good at this recognition thing?
Well, let's see. Step one, have an ice cream party.
Duh.
Obviously.
Right.
No, I mean, truthfully, it's this kind of idea of do something, right? So look for opportunities to celebrate. And I think once you start looking for opportunities to celebrate, you start looking for what people are doing right, you start focusing on the things that are going well within your organization, you start turning that cycle around. So it's very, very easy to focus on what's going wrong and we want to fix all the things, right? But if you focus on fixing all the things, you're just going to find more things to fix and it's going to become this vicious negative cycle. If instead of focusing on the things you need to fix, if you start focusing on the things that are going right and you reward the things that are going right and you praise the things that are going right, the things, the people, the processes, things like that, then you start looking for more things that are going right. And you start to build this culture and this cycle of finding things that are worth celebrating, and you start getting it going in the right direction.
Well, I think just thinking too, back to this this Microsoft organization where they would have like the every other week the drink cart and some food and that kind of stuff, but they would go through and say, all right, what was accomplished in the last 2 weeks? That's what we're celebrating here. So the party was happening. It was on the schedule. It was recurring. But, the motivation was this one GM that just said, hey, if we do this, it was the additional motivator. Like, we're going to have this. It's going to be some ice cream sandwiches and, kind of light things. But you do this, like, I'll bring in tacos. I'll bring in this favorite food vendor. I'll do something more above that. So there was more motivation around that. Mm-hmm. So getting the recognition, getting the motivation, and it became part of the culture of that organization to go and do that. Which, by the way, when you take a pause, and this startup, this well-funded startup did something very similar where they did it every Friday and they would only do this was actually culturally, I thought was brilliant. They would only interview new people coming in as the company was growing quickly on Fridays so that everybody knew, like everyone in the company was part of one or more interview cycles with different candidates coming through, and that they would do everybody was invited on Friday. They would close shop at like 3:30 in the afternoon and everybody could go grab a beer on the veranda. We were south of Market in San Francisco. They bring in some food and then they would sit around and network and talk for 2 hours. Culturally, what that did is that made us very close early on.
Yeah.
Later it got transactional, but early on with the initial leadership, we had a leadership change there. That's part of what changed there. But at Microsoft and that other team, it was very similar. It's like it just became, the culture. People knew that we could have a difficult week, but that we're going to be recognized for the hard work at the end of this cycle.
Yeah. And I think another piece to that is not just generically rewarding people, but being specific in allowing peers to recognize each other, like giving them an opportunity.
Great point. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, that's something going back to my first tech startup. That was something they actually did, was that they would come up with, there were rules around it, but came up with cash rewards that the company would pay, but you could submit the names and why, and for that. And it was wide ranging. It wasn't a massive amount of money either, but it was a nice recognition that if I had 3 people, I could submit 3 different names for this. And I had that where all 3 of them would get the cash reward for that.
I see a lot of organizations that do those kinds of things, like catching people doing something right or looking for opportunities to reward people. And the larger the organization is, the better those types of programs are, because often, at an organizational level, leadership may not recognize something that somebody does, but maybe, multiple levels down, their manager knows how hard they worked for that. Right. Yeah. And so I think allowing everybody to participate in some way lets you catch people doing things right in a way that you can't always do at the top.
Something, just another idea too, like as far as integrating that into deeper in the culture and the way that you work is, for managers, for people managers, when you have those one-on-ones, to make sure it's a line item, a question you ask is, hey, is there anybody that stands out from your interactions like this week? And it could be the same person that you mention week after week, for this is why, but to get people think about what that does. That tunes people. It trains them on thinking about who really went above and beyond in our interactions that may not have been visible in the rest of the organization, that I would want to recognize there and provide that feedback. And I'm not a huge fan, for different reasons, of the whole 360-degree feedback systems that are out there.
I think they mean well.
I think it's failure of execution of of those programs. I like the concept, but that kind of fits into that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're adding together, what are all of the, who gets mentioned by multiple people and repeatedly? So that is something that you can kind of build into your workflow.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Well, thinking about, best practices. So, you don't have to spend a lot of money. It doesn't have to be a high budget there. It can be low cost, high impact. So team lunches, one-on-one lunches, just doing a shout out. Having a whiteboard where you have, manually drawn up their leaderboard of things. We would do this with stats. And I know that some of the team leads around the whole, mean time to resolution in the support operations would, they would use that internally just for like friendly competition. I realize there's some people that don't like that whole thing. It's like, well, don't go into support or into sales.
No, I think, you're absolutely right. I think it doesn't really matter how you do it. I think if you know your people, your culture, kind of what they're into, I think you'll know what the right answer is. But even just, you think about Scrum proper and doing the retrospective, usually there is a point during the retrospective ceremony where we call out what went right and who were leaders, as part of that project. And I think just taking the time sometimes to recognize, what people did and what worked for everybody as a group can be just as impactful as spending a lot of money on a large, event or something can be, depending on who it is and what they need out of it and what makes sense for that culture and those people.
Well, I think especially if you've gone through the kind of systems planning process, if you've outlined your goals, like top level organizational goals, business unit, your working team, down to your own as an individual contributor, what things you're working on and how they drive up to each one of those, even being recognized a bit, being, at meets or exceeds on those organizational goals. And thank you to everybody all the way down the chain that helped us deliver on that. There's a certain amount of organizational pride that we get from that. So tying that to the organizational goals, it makes people, and this is an important thing, especially this modern era, people want to know that they are working on something that matters, that there's value, that, not just value at me delivering this, doing well in my job, but what we're doing, the purpose of this project. So when you're able to align, people understand the work that I'm doing day to day, how I'm adding to the delivery of this project, which does this good for the world, and that we're being recognized for hitting the milestones against that. Again, it can be kind of a broader celebration, but people feel like, hey, I'm actually doing good. I'm here because I believe in this project, this technology, this thing, whatever we're doing. So I know that we've got some clients that are like this. They're very proud of what they're doing and the work that they do.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be recognition that's unique to industry and region and kind of all those different things. So build that out into your plan to recognize.
Yeah. And also, when you're doing that, make sure you include everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you can't celebrate with every single person at every single time, but think about who participated in whatever goal or thing that you're celebrating. Because I know I've seen a lot of places where you're going to have a team of people that do things, but then ultimately they only take out like the high achievers to celebrate, and they forget about the people who kind of supported around the edges to make sure it happened. So I'm just going to say out loud, just really think hard about who actually made all of that happen. And don't forget, you know, the people behind the scenes, because oftentimes there's support people or admin people who made sure that you could do your job so that you could be successful. And so it's just nice to be inclusive of anybody who had anything to do with that, whatever it is that you're celebrating.
Right. I just wrote that one down because that's a great additional topic, like celebrating your superstars, but ignoring your rank and file. That is it's a problem. And the other thing too is that you do need to make it manageable. So having a cadence around, we're going to do these things, whether it's monthly or quarterly. Honestly, I think quarterly is probably too spread out. Maybe the broader organizational, company-wide, doing something that's quarterly. But doing something that is lower down, monthly or, per milestone, whatever that is. But just think about doing that more frequently, because I think that's where we kind of started, was that we're not doing it enough. So monthly would be, the very least you could do.
Well, and again, like it depends on your organization, right? Because you want to do something that makes a difference, but doesn't become just part of the rote, business. Because if you, have something that is celebratory, but it's like not really celebratory, then all of a sudden it's no longer special, right?
Right. Because that's exactly it has to be special, because people will know that. We all know that, where it's like, all right, here's just kind of a generic thank you for all of the work that you do. Okay. What specifically are you thankful that we went and did, so I think having it more frequent, recognizing, the smaller successes. I like this, the call to action, thinking about, recognizing the individuals that you one-on-one, like that's something you can go and improve at the team level. Recognize, okay, where are we in the project? Are we closing on a major milestone? That's the time for celebration. I realize that not all milestones, there's a lot of overlap and things that are out there. Be like, do what makes sense, but you do want to recognize those checkpoints. And again, if you can identify that early on, it says, hey, when we're done, when we close the development phase of this project, we're going to have a celebration. When we do then the operational, the testing and QA, when that's done, we're going to have a celebration. When we've completed delivery, we're going to do that. Then support is a lifetime. So we'll never celebrate those people.
Yeah. And I think, when we think about this in general, it's you get what you focus on. And so if you're focusing on opportunities where you can celebrate, and you can appreciate your team and what they're doing and what they're accomplishing, you will find that you will have more opportunities to celebrate those wins. And if you focus on what's going wrong, you will find more opportunities to focus on what's wrong. So instead of doing that, make sure that you're looking for opportunities to celebrate your people and looking for opportunities to celebrate goals that you're accomplishing together as a group. And you will just continue to find more opportunities to celebrate.
Yep, definitely. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you for spending your Monday morning with us, as we're back here every Monday morning at, what are we at, 9 a.m. Pacific?
Every Monday.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Morning. It's how we start our week.
Yep. Be sure to follow us and subscribe. Make sure you follow our new YouTube channel.
Please.
And you can find us at youtube.com/@projectfailurefiles. So super simple. Then, of course, you can find us out on the socials. We're all over the place. So we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.